Hi, I would like to do a presentation of my analysis and interpretation of the novel The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. Um, the novel The Perks of Being a Wallflower is written by Stephen Chbosky and was published in 1999. The novel has also been made into a movie by Chbosky himself in 2012, which became very popular at the time. The novel is divided in four parts and has an epilogue at the end. It is structured as multiple letters, and the letters are written to an unknown receiver we never get to know. Every letter starts with a date, and Charlie writes in the beginning, "Dear friend," and ends the letter with "Love always, Charlie." Um, the letters are never answered, and therefore it gets the effect of being a long series of diary pieces. If we look at the narrator, it's a first person narrator exclusively from the young boy Charlie's point of view. He's the protagonist and also the center of the letters. About the setting and the language, the novel takes place in a Pittsburgh suburb in the 1990s and is focused on Charlie at the beginning of his freshman year of high school. We see everything through Charlie's eyes, and we get to experience the people around him from his perspective and only from his. The language is determined by Charlie's age and his person, but he is actually very mature in a literary context. Um, so it's not obvious that it's a 15-year-old boy writing this. Um, as the letter speaks directly to the unknown receiver, we get a very personal story from Charlie. His thoughts and reflections has an essential role throughout the story because of the one narrative we get presented to. It makes the entire novel subjective and very descriptive from Charlie's point of view. And a quote that shows this, I'll read out loud. To tell you the truth, I love Sam. It's not a movie kind of love either. I just look at her sometimes and I think she is the prettiest and nicest person in the whole world. So it's very obvious that it's his own personal opinion and he describes her as he sees her, and not as anyone else sees her. Um, and his relationship to his English teacher Bill, he gets to know a lot of new words and reads multiple books every month. Um, and Charlie is very interested in books and in learning new words, and that is also a thing he talks about a lot. His urge to learn and develop both academically and also as a person. And if we look at the characterization, I've chosen to concentrate on Charlie, the protagonist, and then his relationship with both Patrick and Sam, mostly them, but also with his English teacher Bill and his aunt Helen. When we start to follow Charlie, he's 15 years old and he just attended freshman year in high school. He's a special boy, he's not like everybody else. He quickly becomes friends with Sam and Patrick and they have a special bond throughout the novel. Um, Charlie has a big brother and a big sister. At their house, they don't talk much about feelings. He doesn't feel like he knows his dad. They don't talk much. He has a better relationship to his mother, but it's not very deep either. The title refers to Charlie as him being the wallflower, and once one of the times Patrick calls him wallflower, it's in the end of part one where he says he's a wallflower. You see things, you keep quiet about them, and you understand. And this is meant in a positive way. A wallflower is normally, you know, a guy or a girl who blends in and doesn't really have any uh, visible characteristics. But Patrick thinks that it's a quality Charlie has as being a wallflower. And according to his relationship with his English teacher Bill, it's Bill, he gives Charlie many advices, and because he can see that Charlie actually struggles inside himself, but without himself knowing it yet. For example, he says to Charlie, "Charlie, we accept the love we think we deserve." And that he says that when Charlie tells him about his sister being hit by his boyfriend, and he doesn't know what to do and hasn't told anybody. Um, and Bill is actually the only stable adult figure in Charlie's life throughout the novel. Um, and his relationship with Aunt Helen is also essential. Charlie's Aunt Helen died when Charlie was 7, and he misses her very much and talks about her a lot in the novel. He mentions her, yeah, many times, and it seems that they were very close back then. He describes their relationship when he talks about her passing away. He says, "I remember telling him how Aunt Helen was the only one who hugged me." So it really describes a close bond between them, maybe even closer than with his parents. Um, Patrick and Sam and their relationship with Charlie plays a big role. Sam and Patrick are siblings, and both Sam and Patrick deal with different issues. Sam was actually sexually abused as a child, and Patrick is gay and struggles with the taboo about homosexuality in several groups. Charlie is deeply in love with Sam, but doesn't act on it. He respects her very much and does not want to ruin their friendship or step over any lines. Um, yeah, and if we look at the theme and the ending, one of the themes is about the relationships in a group of people and what importance inclusivity can have for a person and the person's perception of him or herself. Um, the teenage years is a very confusing period of a person's life because you're trying to figure out who you are and who you would like to be. Um, Charlie has a lot of thoughts about when he grows up and how he would like to uh, look back on his youth. For example, he's making a mixtape for his first drive to a party. He writes, "Maybe I'm being too sentimental, but I like to think that when I'm old, I will be able to look at all these tapes again and remember those drives." Um, he does that to create good memories for himself to look back at. Another theme that is prominent is drugs. Drugs plays a big role in the novel, and several of the characters are experimenting with it. It shows how drugs can be used for a kind of escapism from life and reality when it gets rough, uh, but also a way to explore another world and be rebellious in a way. Um, about the ending and the epilogue, Charlie is surprisingly finds out that he was molested by his aunt Helen when she was still alive. And that was very surprising both for Charlie but also as a reader. Um, him and Sam has an intimate moment and he can't go through with it because he feels completely frozen and uncomfortable. That's when he suddenly remembers how his aunt Helen used to touch him, and he just breaks down psychologically and spends 2 months in the hospital. That's too much for him to take. And in the epilogue, Charlie writes his last letter, and here he reflects on life and why we as individuals are where we are and why we behave as we do. There's not one single thing that defines us, but a lot of things and many factors. And as individuals, we must decide who we want to be and not concentrate on the past. And he says in a quote in the end, "But even if we don't have the power to choose where we come from, we can still choose where we go from here." And this actually becomes Charlie's own conclusion and also reflection on all his experiences he has had in the last year in high school.